This is a deconstruction of the podcast between Mel Robbins and Dr. Salas Whalen, considered the #1 obesity doctor in the world, and she's speaking to Mel Robbins, the #1 podcast in the world. Now these things are so slick, and Mel Robbins is so slick, and she puts up a magnificent show, and it's very professional. Salas Whalen herself is a very impressive character with a very large media presence, so she's so well presented, and her arguments are so sculpted and they're so clear, and she comes across as so compassionate, and I'm very impressed by that. But the thing that got me hooked on Salas Whalen, and just considering Ozempic as a serious choice for me, quite at the beginning of the podcast she says, weight loss should not be a full-time job. Weight loss should not consume your life mentally or physically. And I thought, hell yeah. This woman understands this constant internal struggle and dialogue that people with eating disorders or weight problems have. This constant struggle where everything you put into your mouth is a decision and negotiation. So I thought she got me there, and I gave her 10 points for that. Green light for Ozempic, that she understands that it is that link between your body and your self-image, and that it shouldn't take so much out of us. So I gave her 10 points for that. Her next point that she made was that obesity is a disease. Now, a disease is not a disorder. So I think it's problematic as a positioning, but it's also very helpful, because everybody understands the paradigm, everybody can talk to each other, that it's a physical condition, and thus there could be physical solutions like a medication. So I'm not too happy with that as a principle, but it's helpful, and the woman has helped thousands of doctors. She is considered the #1 weight loss doctor in the world. When it comes to the side effects, I was not with her on that page, because I experienced significant side effects, not severe, significant side effects in my first 2 weeks on Ozempic, and she just seemed to completely disregard them. She didn't acknowledge them as real even. So she never mentioned them by name: nausea, dizziness, intestinal disorders, and these things are common. They appear on the side effects of the package themselves. And at first I thought it odd, but you give her the benefit of the doubt because she's done this interview so many times, and maybe she just forgot, or it's not on the top of her mind. But Robbins came back at it in a few different ways, and she kept on repeating it, and eventually she said, I'm saying this until I don't have to repeat myself again. The safety and efficacy, I'm saying this again till I don't have to do it again. I'm saying again until I don't have to repeat myself. The safety and efficacy of this drug depends on who is prescribing it. What the hell is that? Surely you can't blame the doctor for a side effect of the pharmacological action of the drug that he or she prescribed. It is a quality of the drug that will give people side effects, not the person who prescribes it. And it's at this stage, and I don't know if the word snake or snake oil starts appearing, but it starts feeling a bit slithery at this stage for me, because she's not acknowledging any side effects, but she's saying that if you have an adverse reaction, then it's the doctor's fault. And for that, I take away 5 points. I gave her 10 points for the positioning, now I'm taking 5 points away. It's not fair. It's not fair. All drugs have effects, so let's not call them side effects. I'm just going to talk about the pharmaceutical industry as a whole, that anything that happens that they don't like is a side effect. Now, we didn't mean it. If they didn't mean it, it doesn't count. And maybe we should say drugs have consequences, right? Some of them we don't like. Then maybe on the list you shouldn't say side effects, you say unintended consequences, but it's still a consequence of the drug. So the OxyContin scandal that they eventually, Purdue had to close that section of the pharmaceutical company down, they were busted lying about the unintended consequences, and their tactic was to blame the patient. No side effects, you used it wrong, you drug addicts. It was a consequence of the drug. So they got busted, and now to start blaming the physician for the consequence of a drug, I don't know. I'm uncomfortable with it in principle. And I think the COVID era, for all its faults, did teach consumers to be a bit more cautious of phrases like safe and effective, because they can too easily be used as propaganda or political tools. Now, Salas Whalen herself has said that Ozempic or the semaglutides are the most significant medical discovery of our lifetime, except if they find a cure for cancer. I think it's a bit much. And that she's so all in makes me slightly uncomfortable. So I've taken away 5 points now for just not talking about the side effects, and I'm going to take away another 5 points for the pharmaceutical industry in general, just for not taking any responsibility for anything. So she started with 10 points, and I've taken 10 points away, so she has 0 points, but I still think that they have value. My biggest concern, and not taking any points away from her, because she doesn't have any at this stage, is that in calling eating disorders a disease and not a disorder, it completely disallows a psychological component, which for me, in my specific case, and for many people I've spoken to, is a very important thing to acknowledge and address, because I'm aware of deep-seated adaptive patterns from my childhood, which results in my binge eating. And she doesn't address it at all, and you don't have to if it is a biological disease. So I thought it was a great interview. Mel Robbins is great, but we end up with a green light and a red flag. And that's how it's going to be with everything on health journeys, which are so complicated and so individual. There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs.